Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fifth installment of Nuclear Heat. This is Vince Russo. It is October 29th, 2015. We have a lot to talk about tonight. And tonight, I want to really bring you kind of behind the scenes and give you a look of how the interstructure works between writer and between talent, which I think is vital to a successful television product. You know, as I keep thinking about what I want to say, and this topic came to me, and I knew it was something I had to talk about. I keep thinking of that old Billy Joel song called "A Matter of Trust," because when you're a writer and you're working with performers, there is a matter of trust that must be involved. It's no different than Hollywood. Actors working with directors, actors working with writers. It's done that way in movies. It's done that way in television shows. It's done that way in every aspect of entertainment. In order to have a successful product, in my opinion, the talent must be working hand in hand with the writers of the show, also the producers and the directors. But I'm going to talk to you today about it from a writing perspective and a writing point of view, because there's so much that goes into it, and there's so much that goes into the success of the end product. And without this communication, without this teamwork, without this trust, it's going to be a one-sided product at the end of the day, and there are going to be issues. Let me get into this and let me explain. As a writer of a show, and it really doesn't matter what that show is, but obviously we're talking about wrestling here, so we're going to keep it pertaining to wrestling. Whether I did this by myself or whether later on I did it with my writing partner, Ed Ferraro, when we wrote shows, when we wrote our Raws during the Attitude Era, what we did was we put ourselves in the boots of every single wrestler that we were writing for. So in other words, when we were writing for Austin, we became Austin. When we were writing for The Rock, we became The Rock. What I mean by that is we had to think like that particular character, because at the end of the day, if every person is put in the same situation or the same circumstance, they are going to act differently. They are going to respond differently. What their verbal communication back is going to be different. Their reaction is going to be different. Mr. McMahon is going to react different than The Rock. The Rock is going to react different than Mick Foley. Mick Foley is going to react different than Shawn Michaels. So the fact of the matter is, you had to become the character. Now, also, what goes hand in hand with that is you had to know beforehand how the actor or the performer or the wrestler in this case was going to react to what you wrote for them. Remember, in wrestling, you're dealing with paranoid performers, and you're dealing with performers who are independent contractors. They're in a business where it's everybody for himself. So they have this mentality of, we're getting screwed again. That's the mentality you have to overcome. So now when we're writing for Mick Foley and we're putting ourselves in the shoes of Mick Foley and we're reacting like Mick Foley would react, we're writing dialogue in the vein that Mick Foley would write it, we also have to take into consideration, how is Mick going to feel about this? What is Mick going to think about this? Is Mick going to have a problem with any of the lines, with any of the verbiage? Is Mick going to poke holes in this? Because every time you brought that script or that scene to the talent, you had to anticipate ahead of time how that talent was going to react to it. And that's where a big part of my job was psychology. I had to know these guys. I had to know them inside and out. I had to know how their brain worked. I had to know whether they were going to completely love something I wrote or whether I was going to have to sell them on it and convince them on it that it was the best for them. So there was a lot of preparation before you even brought the script to the talent. And keep in mind, I'm going to use that word again, respect. It's all a matter of respect. Each performer is an individual talent, and the respect you have for them, you want their part to be the best it possibly could be. That's what you work at. That's what you strive for. So now you take what you've written, you go through it in your mind. What are some of the objections Mick is going to have? Is Mick going to want to change this? Why is Mick going to change this? All this is going on in your head before you go to talent. Now you bring it to the talent. Now, in order to have a successful scene or a successful story or a believable character, both sides need to work hand in hand with each other. And I used to say this all the time. As the writer of the show, I'm writing for 50 guys and gals. I'm writing 50 characters for 50 guys and gals. All they're thinking about is their character. They're thinking 24/7 about their character. So at the end of the day, nobody knows their character better than they do. And I realize that going in. But there's another side to that. While all they're thinking about is their character 24/7, I have to be concerned with the characters that they're interacting with to make sure that, those characters are protected. Because, the performer I'm bringing that material to, all they're thinking about is themselves. And again, that goes back to how the wrestling business was built. It was built on me, myself, and I. I'm an independent contractor. I have to watch out for myself. They're not looking out for the other guys, no matter how much they tell you they are. They're not. That's just how the business was built. So now, Mick looks at the script, and nobody knows, Mick Foley better than Mick Foley. I know, yes, the objective is to get Mick over, but the objective is to also get the other guys in the scene over. So I'm going into this, thinking about what's best for Mick, thinking about what's best for everybody else. The communication here between talent and writer is absolutely vital for so many reasons. First of all, as I said, nobody knows their characters better than they do. So you want to get their real feeling and their real emotion for how they feel about, what you wrote. Then obviously you want to get their input. Do they like it? If they don't like it, why don't you like it? If you don't want to do it this way, what way would you want to do it? This is a whole conversation with the objective being that when all is said and done, you want the written word, you want the scene, you want the script, you want the segment to be the best it possibly could. Whether it's my idea or whether it's Mick Foley's idea, it doesn't matter. The both of us are after the same thing, and that is that whatever Mick's going to be in that night, we want it to be the best it possibly can be. So as you can see, the marriage between writer and performer is absolutely crucial. And it's the same with producer. When I put on my producer hat and I had to shoot a pre-tape, or I had to shoot something in the back, or I had to shoot a vignette, it was the same thing. I was working together with the talent to get their feedback in order to make it a combination of the two so it could be the best that it possibly could be. Because, again, all I cared about at the end of the day was the end result. So you clearly had defined characters back there. You had a Mick Foley, you had a HBK, you had a Triple H, you had a New Age Outlaws, you had a Sable, you had a Mark Merrow. Everybody was clearly defined. And a lot of that was the teamwork and working together, me trusting the performer and the performer trusting me. At the end of the day, you got the best product. Okay, now there are a lot of us out there, that we feel that there's a lack of characters in the WWE, character development. There's a lack of storylines in the WWE. All of it seems very generic. Everybody seems to be coming out of the same mold. I know as a writer, I'm seeing this. You take Cena and Brock out of the equation, nobody's really popping to the top of that chart. Everybody's kind of, in the middle, swimming in a sea of mediocrity. Nobody's really getting over. So, as I'm watching this, I can only come up with ideas and opinions of why I think this is happening. Let's face it. From day one, Vince McMahon was very successful in creating characters. Go back to pre-WrestleMania. Some of the greatest characters in the history of wrestling have come through the WWE. But let's also remember, a lot of those characters were already the characters they were when they were working in indie promotions and they were working for other territories, and then they came into the WWE. They already had some sort of a character, so that character at that point was really redefined. So, what it comes down to is, I know Vince McMahon knows how to create characters. He's done it in the past. He's proven that he could do it. What's happening now? Why are people going from NXT into the WWE and there's no character whatsoever when you have the same man involved? So I've got contacts within the WWE, and I started poking around and I started asking the question, why is this happening? Why aren't characters being clearly defined and getting over? Why does it seem everybody's just swimming in the middle? So people on the inside are basically telling me, listen, Vince, it's starting and it's ending with Vince McMahon. And Vince McMahon, and this is the verbiage that was used to me. Vince McMahon basically wants these guys and gals to be droids. He wants to tell them exactly what to say, how to say it, and they have no freedom whatsoever to go off of script. And not only that, they're scared to death too. They're scared to death to go off script. They're scared to death to challenge them. They're scared to death to push them. And a lot of that makes sense because let's face it, in 2015, where are these guys going to go work? This isn't the WCW days where we could have went to work at WCW. We could have went to work at ECW. Where are they going to go? Listen, we don't know the future of TNA. Ring of Honor is probably going to lose a slot on Destination America as well. Lucha Underground only has a budget of so much. The options of the wrestlers are few and far between. So they have to fall in line and they have to do what they are told. So that's why when you watch the show, you're getting a lot of vanilla interviews. You're getting a lot of vanilla promos. It's a lot of the same, and they're straightforward wrestling promos. Nobody is really getting the opportunity to interject their own personality into that. Now, there are some objections to the rule. Those objections would be, of course, John Cena, because I think he was around before these rules were in place. But another guy you look at is like a guy like Bray Wyatt, who, quite frankly, myself or Vince McMahon, it doesn't matter, couldn't possibly write for this guy. I think Bray Wyatt is a genius. I could tell by his promos. I could tell by his delivery. So you're going to kind of let that guy run. But the other guys, the Ambroses and the Rollins and the Reigns and people like this, you kind of hear that same wrestling promo over and over and over and over again that we've been hearing since the beginning of time. So to me, not having the interaction with the talent one-on-one, not treating them as an individual, That's really what's hurting, getting new stars over, getting guys over. And to me, what that really comes down to is a matter of trust. Vince McMahon as the boss, Vince McMahon as the one who is making the decisions on the show, he's got to trust these characters that they know who they are. They know their personality. They know their strengths and weaknesses. They know what they can do and what they can't do. He's got to give them the freedom to fail. He's got to let them go out there and be creative and experiment in order for them to find their niche. If they go out there time and time again and do exactly what is written for them and there's no wiggle room, they're never going to get better. So to me, there's no trust there. And Vince doesn't trust these younger athletes that they know what they're doing, or they have an understanding of their character, or they have an understanding of the business. And he's calling every single shot. Well, when one guy calls every single shot, and there's no steady input from the wrestlers themselves, guess what? Every wrestler is going to sound the same. And that's clearly what's happening, in my opinion. If you don't have trust with your talent, if you can't work together as a team, if you can't share the input to come up with the very best television product you can, then quite frankly, you're going to see what you're seeing now. Now, with all this being said, and me coming on here every week, I've said over and over and over and over and over again, listen, my job, what I do here, what everybody else does on Wrestling Inc. here, depends on the wrestling business. So in other words, in order for me to thrive, in order for Wrestling Inc. to thrive, we need the wrestling business to thrive. And I do not want to come on here every single week and be part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. I want to be able to say, listen, based on my experience and, writing wrestling television shows for over 2 decades, here are the problems I see. These are some simple adjustments that can be made to make the show better. So I get frustrated when we do a review show on Monday night and I have to be critical of the show. I get very frustrated, but, as a critic and as a reviewer, that is my job. At the end of the day, I want the product to be better. That's all I want. I've been a fan of wrestling since 1972, 1973. That's when I first started. It's been a long time. The point it's at right now, I'm not really happy with. I take pride in the wrestling business. I think it could be a lot better. Now, I'm not saying we need to go back to the Attitude Era. That's what everybody likes to assume that's what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all. I knew after the Attitude Era that the business needed to evolve into what was next. The wrestling business, just like everything else, always needs to keep revolving. In the case of wrestling, they've gone backwards instead of forwards. That's the problem. With all that being said, I, basically, I don't know, 10 days ago, a week ago, whatever it is now, maybe 10 days ago, I think it was after last week's Raw, I emailed Vince McMahon and I went public with it. I let everybody know. First of all, everybody said to me, Vince, why did you go public with this? If you were really sincere, you wouldn't have let everybody know that you emailed Vince McMahon in the WWE. Well, I went public for it with it for a reason. First and foremost, I don't trust the WWE these days. What they've tried to do to my credibility and, my contributions to their company, through the WWE, through the Monday Night Wars that they put on their network, how they've tried to belittle me and tarnish my reputation and, take away my contributions. I have zero trust in them whatsoever. I do not trust them. I do not trust anybody there. So the last thing I was going to do was write Vince McMahon an email stating, I want to help you. I want to help you get the product back to where it was before. I watch the product. I study the product. I know the ratings. I know the numbers. I think I can still help you. Okay. I did not want that to become, oh, Vince Russo emailed us looking for a job, because that would have been the WWE spin on it, when for all intents and purposes, I am not looking for a job. I honestly have no interest in a job there. What I'm doing now between Wrestling Inc., between VinceRussoBrand.com, I'm dabbling now a little bit of local radio here in Colorado, which I'm really enjoying. Now more than ever, there really is no desire to get back into the wrestling business. There really isn't. That is the truth. Now, I'll be honest with you. In the past, if I wanted to go back, it was because of monetary reasons. It would have been because I needed the money. Well, I'm at a point now where I've been out of the wrestling business now almost 4 years on a full-time basis. I've built up my brand. I've built up something in podcasting. I've built up my name. I don't need that money to go back, but I want to help. As a fan, I can't sit here and just continue to see that viewership dwindle week after week after week after week, from the point it was at to the point it is now. There's been a 15-year nosedive, and quite frankly, I don't think anybody there knows how to fix it, because if they knew how to fix it, they would do that. And the fact of the matter is, people that want to tell you it's a different time, people that want to tell you the ratings the ratings don't matter now, whatever they want to tell you, all those things are excuses. Period. End of story. At the end of the day, their excuses. I know their excuses. The WWE knows their excuses. There are television shows in 2015 that still draw big numbers. DVRs can be used on any show at any time. Internet can be used to watch any show at any time. That applies across the board. And there are shows out there still doing big numbers. Monday Night Football still does a big number. And that right there tells you everything. There was a point where the WWE Raw used to beat Monday Night Football. Monday Night Football is still doing great numbers. WWE is doing a fraction of Monday Night Football. Right there, that tells you everything you need to know. And it's as simple as this. Vince McMahon told me one-on-one, Vince, if it's good, they'll watch it. Those were the words of Vince McMahon 15 years ago that still ring true today. So I want to make myself clear. And anybody watching this, I want to make it clear. I don't want to sit here and complain and criticize and ridicule the wrestling business. I do it because I'm a critic, and I do it because it's my job, and I do it because I'm honest, and I do it because I'm not waiting for my phone to ring, for that WWE job. Let's face it, guys. If I was looking for a job in the WWE, I don't think I'd be saying 75% of the things that I say. Because they can't be well received in Stamford, Connecticut. But that's Vince Russo, and that's Vince Russo's honesty. But with that, I extended the olive branch saying, guys, I want to help you. I can help you. I can help the product. I think I can help wrestling thrive again. There was a point in time in 1996 when WWE was in the red. They were in a lot of trouble. Vince had nothing to lose, and he gave a nobody by the name of Vince Russo a shot. And what happened? Well, the Attitude Era happened. Well, why not give Vince Russo a shot again? If I was a part of that success back then, why wouldn't I be able to help now? And I'll tell you exactly why. I'm sorry. Because they're prideful, because the WWE and especially Vince McMahon don't want to be in a position where they admit we need help. We don't know what to do. We've kind of lost our way. That will never come from them. So when it comes, when they talk about what's best for business, that's a facade. That's a facade like ratings don't matter. Because basically what they're doing here is they have a writer who was the most successful writer in their history, basically saying, I want to help you. This isn't about money. This isn't about power. This isn't about ego. This is about my love for the wrestling business. And I'm seeing things where I know I can help you. Immediately, I know I can help you. But their pride is getting in the way of what's best for business. The pride of, we don't need any help, Vince. Thanks, but no thanks. We know what we're doing. Everything is under control. That pride is really getting in the way of what's best for business, and that's fine. Hey, listen, I'm sitting here now. I'm doing my thing. I'm happy doing my thing. I'm making money doing my thing. I'm making a living doing my thing. I want to help them out of my love for their business and also out of my love for Vince McMahon. I'm not going to lie to you. I worked very closely with the man for 5 years. I think very highly of him. I thought very highly of Stephanie, when I worked with her. Everything I do is on a professional level, not a personal level. So my personal feelings has not changed for them whatsoever. But that's it. I just wanted a clear explanation. But until there's that trust with Vince and his talent, everybody is going to come out that curtain the same. You need the feedback. You need the input from the talent and the wrestlers themselves. You need to listen. I hope that was educational and also entertaining to you. I like to be able to give you a little behind the scenes input. I know you don't, necessarily get from other sources. I hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you Monday night when I'll be reviewing Raw along with the rest of the queue, with the crew immediately following, Monday Night Raw right here on Wrestling.com. Also remember, you can follow me every day of the week at VinceRussoBrand.com. Thanks for joining me, everybody.